Okay, so today we're going to talk about the branded deck list that I used last weekend on Sunday to win the case tournament from our local store. I think about 70 players entered. I know a lot of people already covered the branded deck on their channel. Pack, for example, even DB Grinder posted a couple of combos recently. But I do think that the deck list is different enough to where it's worth covering it a bit, talking a little bit about it, and maybe get a few people to try it out and also leave some feedback. Maybe in the comments, I would like to hear what you guys think about the list, and maybe if you think some of the points that I bring up are, worth it, or if it's trash. Now, the deck list is, of course, it's 60 cards. It's the main thing that I want to talk about in this video. It is quite interesting how people don't want to play 60 cards, and they're kind of afraid of doing so almost because they feel like they will suffer so much from the siding patterns. Now, why I think this doesn't make sense in the current format is because two reasons. The branded deck has enough consistency cards that even if you pump up the number of cards that you play, there are so many options that we are currently not playing in the branded decks. I look at cards like Gold Sarcophagus, branded in High Spirits that paired with Serenir or other dragons can get you access to branded fusion sometimes. The branded deck can still be very consistent even if you pump up the number of cards that you play. Now, the other argument is that if you go second, you want to see your high quality cards as much as possible. Of course, when you go second in Yu-Gi-Oh, in every format, there are cards that are of higher quality and cards of lower quality when you go second. For example, last format, Bystial Count was one of the best cards that you could open versus Tearlament, and you had to keep your deck count for many reasons, but that's also a reason as low as possible, so you maybe see Magnamood and you have a higher chance of winning going second. In the current format, personally, the card quality of many going second cards is equal. None of them feel particularly great versus everything, but all of them do something. Nibiru, Super Polymerization, and Book of Eclipse are usually cards that you don't see in one deck list, but usually you see maybe one or two of them in the main deck, the other one in the side deck. And if you pump up the number of cards, you can obviously play all of them. So the chance of seeing a going second cards still remains almost the same, especially alongside the 8 Bystials, which are of course not that great this format, but I also view them as sort of counters to Ash in this specific deck. Just to clarify the point a bit more, Nibiru is, for example, very good versus Kashtira versus Sword Soul, but not that great versus branded or other decks. Super Polymerization is very good versus Kashtira if they don't rip your Mud Dragon or if you side a second one going second. It is obviously very good versus branded, but it's not that great versus Sword Soul. Also very good versus Spright, and Book of Eclipse might be very strong versus Kashtira and maybe a bit also branded sometimes, but it's not that great versus Life Twin Spright, for example, or maybe Runic Spright, which are also somewhat popular decks this format. So I think the card quality remains almost the same, and that is a reason why the 60 cards, they just don't bother you that much. The big advantage is, of course, that you don't see your bricks as often, and those bricks you kind of have to play, in my opinion. If you want to build a solid board going first this format, you have to play all those cards such as Retribution, such as Banishment, such as Branded in White, such as Branded Beast as well versus the trap decks. This is a necessary card. That's the main reason why I choose to play 60 cards. There are definitely other cards that you can play as well. Like I said, Branded in High Spirits. I'm currently thinking about playing the Despia field spell as well, because you can go into Guardian Chimera, and I do think that there are hands where you don't want to risk as much by playing into Ash Blossom by searching Branded Fusion with your Aluba. You rather want to just make Guardian Chimera with the field spell, so you want to have a card that fusion summons with your cards on hand and field to be able to search of Aluba. So a tiny advantage that is somewhat funny is that you can just never lose to the Runic strategy. So I don't know how it's looking for you guys, but at my local community, everyone's playing Runic at the moment. People just don't know what they want to play yet, and they don't want to spend so much money on Lubellians or Kashtira cards. So Runic is quite a popular strategy, but they can just never deck you out. And even the Spright Runic deck really just wants to go for the deck out at the moment because the follow-up is not that great, and the Spright cards don't do as much anymore. So that's pretty funny. Let's maybe talk a bit about the deck choice or the card choices a bit more. I don't want to go over every card, but maybe a couple of interesting things that you see here, such as the Tearlament cards or why I play the Patchwork Engine still. So 3 Fusion, 3 Aluba, 3 openings, obviously still there. Then Fusion Deployment is now a very good way to play around Ash, to play around Impermanence Veiler. So this card makes the deck infinitely better with Cartesia. I do play 2 Cartesia because of Kashtira if they banish one, though I don't know if you really need the second one, as I mentioned. I do play 3 Patchwork and the whole Edgem engine still. 3 Patchwork, 2 Edgem Chain, 2 Polymerization. The ratio is because 3 Patchwork We play 60 cards, so we want to play the power spells as much of as possible. And there are not that many combos anymore where you discard your Edgem Chain. So in the past, you would always opening with Edgem Chain in the 40 card deck list, or you would always discard it with the Lubellion because it was the first thing that you did. But now with the Lubellion combos, the main deck Lubellion, I mean, it's not really that common anymore that you discard all the time, and especially with the new Mercuria combos, which are very, very insane. You don't discard it as much anymore. So that's why I play 3 Patchwork and 2 Edgem Chain and 2 Polymerization. If you draw one of them, it happens. You can shuffle back one of the Edgem Chains with your Lubellion or with your Tearlament cards. So I guess that's okay. So sometimes you can resolve even the 3rd Patchwork. But even if not, like, it just gives you a free card in your hand that you can use for a discard later on. I also play for 1 Foolish Burial for, you know, basically for everything in this deck. This searches your Alibur through Tragedy. It gives you a Mercuria in the grave that you can banish off your Bystials. It also mills your Tearlament cards in the grind game and gives you another fusion. So still a very good card. Then maybe let's talk about the Bystial Engine and why I still played that many. So to Lubellion, I feel like if they banish one of Kashtira, you know, you still want to have a second one. And also, I like to draw this card, honestly, if I go first. Like, it's a decent combo piece. And even though you have a second light target in Cartesia, personally, I felt really nice with this number. Even though I can understand, you can also cut it to 1. Personally, like I said, still like the Bystial Engine reasonably well in the format, honestly. And also, you have to think about how if more people are playing Branded now because it is more popular, people understand that the deck is very strong in the format. You want to play more Bystials because the Bystials are the best part versus Branded, and everyone's cutting the Bystials. So if you want to get an advantage in the Branded mirror match, I feel like many Bystials are the way to go. And then 3 Saronir, 3 Magnamut, obviously because those are 2 combo pieces, and the Magnamut you can bounce with the Rindbram, and the Saronir gives you more Branded cards in the grave. But I still want to have the option for 1 Boltrek and 1 Druisworm to search off the Magnamut. I feel like still Druisworm both and Boldrake, they can both come up and be very, very strong. I still like them. If you go first and they ash you, you basically don't die because they can't OTK you through those usually, unless they play maybe Kashtira, which is, it is a difficult matchup, and the Bystials are not the best, but then you just side them out later, so it's not that big of a problem. And I like them for what they do in the deck still. And then I think the most interesting part, maybe what you want to hear the reasoning on the most in this video, is probably the Tearlament cards. Now, if I'm being honest, Rhinoheart is probably the worst one. You could cut this. I haven't really summoned it with Fusion Deployment as much as I initially thought you would. I'm still contemplating whether or not it's worth to play it, but currently it's still in, and Tearlament cards in general are nuts. Like, I think you still have to play these cards. If I went to a tournament tomorrow, if I went to a YCS, I would probably put those cards in the deck, just because these help you push through regular boards so well. It's not even funny. Like the planet, if you activate it, like, it already immediately applies so much pressure. If you draw a tragedy with it, like, the Sheeran gets the tragedy, and then you mill 3 cards. And honestly, if you mill one of the key cards, opening, Branded Fusion, or something like that, and you have an Albion with it in hand, or you have a Saronir, and you have some way to mill another card, you get the Retribution, and it instantly gets you still access to your Branded Fusion. So even though you don't have key colors anymore, it's still such a strong engine. And to be honest, if you just activate the planet versus a Spright board, I will show you a replay of that later, where we went second with the Tearlament engine, and how only the Tearlament engine only through the Tearlament engine we were able to break the board. If you activate that, then you summon the Sheeran. It's already a 2-3 beater on board that puts pressure on your opponent. I also think that the 500 boost is very important in both the mirror match as well as the Kashtira matchup, because the Kashtira cards all get a boost from their own field spell, so you kind of have to have something to counteract that. And the annoying part is that Shangri-Ira has 3000 defense, which you don't have lots of monsters. Basically, only Guardian Chimera that has above 3000, maybe Kaleido Heart, but you don't really summon that anymore. It's mainly to reveal of Fusion Deployment. So that's the main reason I put it in. Before, these were still Bystials and other going second cards, but I enjoy them very much because they're good going first and going second. To be honest, normal summoning a Merly just milling 3 cards is also very decent. Like, if you hit Saronir with any branded card, like, it's instant access to one of your branded spells. So I like it quite a lot. And you should definitely play around with it and see it in action. I think the kind of interactions that you get are very, very strong. And also to versus Labyrinth, to be able to destroy their stuff, very, very good. For the extra deck, I don't want to really go over it, to be honest. Most of it is clear. You can see what we're playing here. Maybe the 2 Masquerade is a bit interesting, but it's just because of the Tearlament cards. Like, if you activate Polymerization on your Aluba and one of the Tearlaments, you make Masquerade, and then you activate the Tearlament in the grave and make another Masquerade. So Very often, or not very often anymore, because now they're all limited, but in the past, very often, what I would do is if you get ashed or something, you would just basically activate Polymerization, make double Masquerade, and then they still have to go into the battle phase early, and then if they lose their battle phase, usually you win in the follow-up, because then you had Brand Fusion again and everything. This is the replay that I want to show off. So we open Sheeran, Polymerization, Cartesia, Fusion Deployment, Branded Loss. So, it's a pretty decent hand in general. Even if you go second, you have a couple ways to break through the board with Polymerization as well to Guardian Chimera. And they open Eclipse, Angler, Ash, Change of Heart, Swap Frog. So, one of the best hands I think you can draw with Spright at the moment. Ash versus Branded. You have Book of Eclipse just to be safe from any type of OTK. And then Swap Frog and Nimble Angler is, of course, the FTK 2-card combo. But anyway, they make somewhat of a great field. They make totally awesome in the end. They search the double cross, so we're gonna have to play through 4 interruptions, which are all they're pretty well spread and different to interact with. We draw the planet for a turn, which is very nice. We activate the planet and they don't choose to negate it with Toad, which I think is kind of understandable in the current format, without Keyed Colors and the Tearlament cards being not as great anymore and they're all being at 1. It's not as scary anymore, but we still have the Sheeran. Of course, if you open the field spell with Sheeran or Melee, it becomes a lot better because then you can use it to break boards going second with a short fusion that you can do with the Melee. We mill 3 cards, we mill Opening, which, that could be useful later on, as you will see. Now we activate the Melee, they negate it with the Toad, as far as I remember, they negate it with the Toad, so we cannot pop a card on their field with the field spell. And already you can see that the Tearlament engine here, it outed a totally awesome, and it put an Opening in the graveyard. So those 2 things are, it's pretty good, without using your normal summon, which is very important for the branded strategy in general. So they add back Nimble Beaver. We normal summon the Cartesia. Of course, very great part about the Cartesia, it doesn't have to use itself for the fusion summon. So even if they would equip it, and it's a quick effect as well. So if they would equip it with the double cross, that wouldn't do basically anything. I used the Polymerization. So if they would, because I didn't have any other monster, so I activated the Polymerization in case they would chain the double cross to get one of the monsters. I would then chain the Cartesia, so we could still fusion summon. So we would dodge the trap. Now we go for Grand Guignol, and that's where things get really dangerous for them, because we can now trigger the Grand Guignol, the Lost, and the Sheeran. They cannot react to the Sheeran because of the fusion summon that is performed in this window. And then on resolution, we're obviously going to be able to destroy a card on the field with Sheeran. Now, what I did wrong here, and you should definitely keep that in mind, it's something that I honestly even forgot, even after all this time playing Branded, is that the Sheeran should have been Chainlink 1, so the Lost also protects the next fusion window. I put Grand Guignol as Chainlink 1, so that means that the fusion summon, the next fusion summon, is gonna miss its timing for Branded Lost. So because it wasn't the last thing to occur, the fusion summon, our opponent will still be able to react with their card. So that's why we had a little discussion, I think, on it in the chat. I kind of totally missed that. My opponent gladly made us aware. We dump Garura with the Grand Guignol, we draw a card, we search the Albion with the Branded Lost, and we make Mud Dragon. So we activate Patchwork. They now chain Ash Blossom, which I think was a mistake on their part, because now we can dump the Retribution in the grave and we can get back the Opening that we milled earlier. So then we can activate Fusion Deployment. All of our draws very, very good here, by the way. So it's definitely an optimal scenario, but it's important to show this off to see what the ceiling of this deck really is. And then we use the Fallen of Albus and their gigantic Spright. We get into Mirror Jade. We then search the Patchwork, and then we use the Branded Retribution to get Opening. And of course, very, very neat that we drew the Edgem Chain that would get us another card in hand so we could activate the Opening. And now we can go through the entire Branded combo, do crazy things, activate Masquerade. They will activate Book of Eclipse. Realistically, maybe I should have chained Mirror Jade here. I kind of missed it, but the great thing is we can still tribute the face down Albion for the Bystial Rebellion. Then we get Branded Beast on board. We destroy their Bujinki, so they don't have as many level 2 or link 2 monsters on board to use with their Sprites. Then we set the Branded Banishment. We draw 3 cards in the end phase, and this is basically our end board. So, I mean, I think it's pretty cool that through an Ash Blossom and 3 other interruptions, we could end on this. Without even using Guardian Chimera, now that I think about it. And, now we can use the Mirror Jade again because it was flipped face down. I mean, we didn't use it in the first place. Even if we would have used it, we could use it again. We can dump the Rindbrum in the grave. Then we can summon back out Fallen of Albus. We have Branded Banishment to get one out of the grave again. We have We didn't draw a Bystial. If we would have drawn a Bystial here, you know, Branded Beast would also be live. So in general, you know, it's very good. And I think basically from there on out, we just win the game. They used the Nimble Beaver, but yeah, they scoop. Okay, that's it with the video. I really hope you did enjoy it and you got something out of it. Let me know what you think about the deck list. Maybe if there's something that you would change personally. What do you think about the 60 card approach after hearing my take on it? And I wish you a good day. All right, see you in the next one. Bye.